Evening, everybody. Welcome to the March 8th, 2021 Troy City Council meeting. I will officially call this meeting to order and ask for the roll call from City Clerk Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Here.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
All present this evening. First on the agenda is certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have 3 of them this evening. The first one, C1, is a service commendation for Fire Chief Dave Roberts. And I understand that he is here. Is he just listening, or are we going to get, oh, here he comes. Look at Dave. All right. Hi, Dave. Good to see you. All right, well, I am going to read this service commendation into the record. I think it's the longest one with the smallest print I've ever seen, Dave. So I got to say, that's something right there. So I will read this into the record and we'll celebrate you a little bit. So this is a service commendation for Fire Chief David Roberts. Whereas at the age of 18, Dave Roberts began his volunteer service to the Troy Fire Department at Station 3 in 1978, responding to calls for service, and began his career with the city of Troy in 1980 when he was hired as a police cadet with the Troy Police Department. He left in 1983 for 1 year to work as a communications supervisor with the Southfield Police Department and returned to the city of Troy in 1984 as a communications supervisor with the Troy Police Department. And whereas Dave continued his volunteer firefighter status, serving as station lieutenant at Fire Station 3 from 1981 to 1985, he was responsible for assigned apparatus, training new members on apparatus and equipment operations, and leading and supervising firefighters at fire incidents. In 1982, Dave assumed the role of training instructor at Fire Station 3, responsible for developing and implementing station training programs for the members, and served as Station 3's captain from 1985 to 1987. And whereas in 1986, Dave was hired as a full-time fire inspector, performing fire and life safety code enforcement inspections, conducting public fire safety education programs, and helping to implement new department protocols. In 1993, Dave was promoted to Assistant Fire Chief, Fire Marshal with the Troy Fire Department. He was instrumental in the development of additional department protocols, responsible for adopting the 2000, 2003, 2006, 2009, and 2012 International Fire Code with local amendments as the City of Troy Fire Prevention Ordinance. And whereas Dave also implemented fire alarm, fire suppression, hazardous materials, fireworks, occupancy, and special event permitting programs, was instrumental in implementing and adopting false fire alarm local ordinance and the fire department requirements for city development engineering design standards. Dave created Fire Explorer Post 911 and coordinated its management with Station 1 Captain Don Hudson, was instrumental in the planning and design of Fire Station 3 with former Staff Lieutenant Rod Bovensey, and was instrumental in the first career staff reorganization. And whereas in 2015, Dave was promoted to the position of Troy's fire chief. In this role, he oversaw and coordinated ISO reevaluation efforts, administered the EMS and first responder medical program, oversaw the budget and construction of new Fire Station 4 with Assistant Chief Hollinger and Staff Lieutenant Hug. Dave implemented the GPS emergency vehicle preemption traffic signal replacement, oversaw design and purchase of 2 new SLR 75 ladder trucks with Assistant Chief Hollinger, implemented TFD Firefighter Memorial at Firefighters Park, initiated the formation of the SOFA MABAS Mutual Aid Group, comprised of 3 Southeast Oakland County Fire Departments and 6 area public safety departments, and co-initiated the formation of the TORRA MABAS training group comprised of 5 Eastern Oakland County Fire Departments. And whereas Dave received his Bachelor of Science degree in Fire Protection from Madonna University in 1986, and a Master of Science degree from Central Michigan University in Public Administration in 1995, over his career, Dave also earned numerous dispatch and fire certifications. And whereas during his 42 years of career service, Dave worked under 6 city managers and directed Troy's 180 volunteer and 11 sworn career personnel, operating over 30 apparatus and vehicles from 6 stations and the Fire Police Training Center with a $6.3 million budget. Dave retired as a volunteer firefighter in 2008 after serving 32 years. And whereas Dave retired from the city of Troy on February 5th, 2021, after 42 years of dedicated service and the utmost respect from the Troy employees, volunteer firefighters, and countless members of the organizations he served. Dave has received commendation awards from both the Troy Police and Fire Departments, Merit Service Awards, Safe Driving Awards, and a Station Member of the Year Award in 2009. And whereas Dave will now enjoy more time with his wife, Susan, married 32 years on April 22nd, 2021, daughter Cecilia, son Jonathan, and daughter-in-law Bridget, as well as enjoying his ham radio hobby, traveling, and spending time up north and in Florida. Now, therefore, be it known that the mayor and the city council of the city of Troy take this opportunity to express their appreciation to Fire Chief Dave Roberts for his professionalism and his many contributions to the Troy Fire Department for the betterment of the community. And be it further known that the mayor and city council of the city of Troy, city management, and the citizens of the city of Troy extends wishes of prosperity, good health, and happiness to Dave during his well-deserved retirement years. This service commendation is presented this 8th day of March 2021, and although it was difficult to read, Dave, because it's so full of so many good things, I'm honored to present it to you and to have you here tonight, even though you didn't have to be because you're retired now, but maybe you came back on your own, which we appreciate. I could say, I mean, I just said a bunch about your career, but I just want to say, I know you, aside from all of this stuff, I know what a kind and warm and compassionate human being you are, how I've never seen you or heard you treat anyone with disrespect. I know your legacy is one of obviously huge accomplishments as far as professionalism goes, but the personal side of you as well. I think it's sometimes rare to have both somebody who's such a wonderful person as well as such a wonderful professional, and you are definitely both. And I will miss you in this city. I know that everyone on council will as well, and the city staff and fire department. But thank you, Dave, for all your service and for being just such a good fire chief and a good friend to me and to the city of Troy. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor and members of City Council. That was very, very kind of you and very kind words, and I appreciate that. I probably have one of the longest service records, and maybe I've got one of the longest proclamations now tonight, so they go hand in hand. But very kind of you to recognize me, and I've said before, it's been an honor to work, for the fire department and serve the citizens of Troy for as long as I did. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't have stayed as long as I did, and it's just been an honor, and I appreciate it. But I am looking forward to retirement. I've been retired a month now, and so far I still like it. So I don't think there's any chance of me coming back or finding any other work, but that could change. But again, thank you. I'll keep it short, but thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Dave. I have a feeling there might be a few on council who want to say a few words as well. So would anyone like to go first? Councilwoman Hoderick. Oh, she unmuted, but then Edna raised her hand. But let's go with you, Ellen, then we'll go to you, Edna.
Chief, me and we go way back. 30 years ago this coming summer, we met as fellow parents in a facilitated parenting group with our new babies, your amazing son and our beautiful daughter. And you and Susan are you've been amazing neighbors, fellow parents in the community when we went through Bemis, Bolin, and Troy High together. I'm going to miss you in our midst. And you've just been an amazing leader in the city and an amazing father. I know that as well. So as the mayor said, we're going to miss having you as a friend that we work with to serve this community. You did it well, and I'm going to really miss you. I think I've been in denial that this is happening. Now this makes it real tonight. I'm very, very happy for you. You both deserve to go up north and enjoy it, and wish you the best in your retirement years. Cheers to you.
Thank you, Ellen. I appreciate that. Yeah, I often joked over the years that Ellen and I had children together, and people gave that a double take, but I had to explain what that meant.
Well, that'll be my lasting memory. Councilmember Abraham, you raise your hand.
Thank you, Mayor. Dave, much like Ellen, I've kind of been in denial that you're leaving. And, seeing you here tonight, looking all relaxed. Now it's finally hit home that you have retired and that you have left us. But I am so happy and excited for you that you have served the city for so long and so well. And in these last few years as chief, you came to the position somewhat abruptly and unexpectedly. And you didn't have necessarily the transition that you'd want to have. And yet the leadership skills from the previous years were on full exhibit because you took charge and you did it with character and you did it with professionalism, and you have the respect of everyone here on council and all the fire stations. You did it the way it should be done, and you too have become a model for others amongst all the fire stations on how to treat the role, whether you're a volunteer, whether you're a station chief or captain. You continue to set that high mark, just as Chief Nelson did before you. On a personal level, I will miss seeing you on Monday nights. I'm sure you'll have much better things to do on Monday nights now that you're not in council, but you have been a great friend for the city, and I will personally miss you very much. I've always enjoyed talking with you, not just about the fire station, but about your life, your family. It really has been a pleasure to know you, and I'm so happy that now you can take many years of retirement, you and Susan, and go any place you want to go at your own call, and you're not woken up in the middle of the night with a run. So congratulations, you will be missed.
Edna, thank you very much. I appreciate those very kind words, and that is one of the things that I'm enjoying so far, is not having to wake up in the middle of the night and go on calls and or answer phones like now. But it's going to be a transition. But so far, like I say, I'm getting used to it, and I like it. And I don't know if it's really sunk in yet. It's starting to sink in. It's been a month, but even this morning when I woke up, I just had a smile on my face. It's like I don't have to go to work this morning. So it's been great. But thank you very much.
Nice. Councilmember Hamilton, did I see your hand go up?
Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Mayor. Chief Roberts, it's been an honor to work with you the last few years on council. First off, sweet retirement beard. I would grow one if I could, but I couldn't even if I wanted to. And just to let you know, just to make you feel really old, it said you started your career in 1978. I was not born yet. I was born in 1983. So you were on the fire department my whole life while I was growing up here. And I just really appreciate your leadership. You entered into the role of fire chief in tough circumstances, as Councilmember Abraham mentioned. And then during your tenure, we also had a lot of difficult times and difficult circumstances, and you continued to lead with integrity, even when maybe the leadership in Troy wasn't on the same page. But we made it through, and like always, you went out the same way you went in, with the smooth transition. You made it really easy for us to hire a new fire chief and helped us with that process, and I'm very grateful for it. And enjoy your retirement, and thank you for everything you've done for our community. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that. And I've waited 42 years to grow this. So as in the fire service, my OSHA doesn't allow us to have facial hair because of our air masks. And I figured after 42 years, I'd give this a try. So so far, it's staying with me. My wife likes it, and I've gotten compliments on it. Does make me look a little bit older, but somebody thinks, or somebody said it makes me look a little wiser, so I guess I'll keep it.
Very good. Anyone else? All right. Well, Dave, first of all, I'm kind of laughing. You can tell you're retired because your name on the screen just says Dave. Everyone else has got a full name. You're apparently, I like that. But I hope we can see you when we get to open the Firefighters Memorial. I hope it times out to where you'll be in town, and because I think you deserve to be there for sure. And give Susan a big hug for us. We miss seeing her too. It's hard. It's been a year, I think, since we've had any opportunity to be social together, and but I know she's probably glad to have you. Well, maybe not. Well, maybe the first month she's happy to have you around so much, but we'll see. Is she over there? Hi, Susan. How are you? Good to know you're there. All right. Chief, we love you. We thank you for all your service. Enjoy retirement, and please don't be a stranger, okay?
Ethan, thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the support that council has given me over the years. And again, all of your kind words. And yes, I plan on being in town for the memorial ribbon cutting, so that's something I won't miss. I'm looking forward to that. So again, thank you all. I appreciate it, and it's been an honor. It's been great. And I'll be in and out, but I eventually be retiring up north, and then we've got a place in Florida, fortunately, so we'll be snowbirds as well. So be back and forth and enjoying that.
Well, very good. Stay safe. Thank you. God bless, and we'll see you around soon, I hope.
All right. Thanks again.
I did. I think what's going to happen when we come back to the more regular everyone in person, we're going to realize all of these great people have retired. So it's a very strange situation. I think that's part of the denial we're all sensing, is we're not seeing them in person anyway. So it's kind of it's a disconnect. But I'm glad that he was able to join us tonight for that. I'll shift gears a little bit. C2 is the resolution to honor the City of Troy residents who've lost their lives due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I will read this resolution. We spoke a little bit about it at the last meeting, but I'm going to read it into the record now. It was updated with some more current numbers. But this is a resolution to honor the City of Troy residents who lost their lives due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas the first U.S. citizen to contract the 2019 novel coronavirus was identified on January 21st, 2020, and had recently traveled from Wuhan, China. And whereas on March 10th, 2020, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and the Oakland County Health Division and Wayne County Health Department announced that 2 Michigan residents tested presumptive positive for coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19, the first confirmed cases in Michigan. And whereas, as of today, more than 524,000 people across the United States have passed away due to the COVID pandemic. Information from the Oakland County Health Department reports that a number of Troy residents have also died due to the novel coronavirus since March 2020. And whereas people everywhere are finding ways to thank our healthcare heroes and to honor the victims, there have been tiny flags, empty chairs, lit candles, shining lights, and photos to memorialize the many victims of the pandemic. And whereas as a nation, as a city, and as a community, we must remember in order to heal. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and city council of the city of Troy will hereby honor the Troy residents that lost their lives due to the COVID pandemic by placing white flags on the lawn in front of Troy City Hall. And be it further resolved that the mayor and city council of the city of Troy encourage our residents to always remember those we have lost due to the COVID-19 pandemic and to give thanks for the lives saved from the virus. The Troy residents we have lost due to COVID are loved ones from our community: mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, grandmothers, grandfathers, aunts, and uncles. This is presented this 8th day of March 2021. And I just wanted to add that I don't know if you've been around in front of City Hall. Mayor Pro Tem Brooks, Community Affairs Director Cindy Stewart, and I placed the white flags out in front of City Hall on this past Friday. I think we've had some beautiful weather on top of it, so that I think they look really, really fitting out there, blowing in the wind with all of our other traditional flags above them. I talked about it last time, but I think it is really important to show the members of our community who've lost loved ones how much we do care and that they are part of our community and we are there for them. And I do want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Brooks, who initially had reached out about doing something to honor the COVID-19 victims and families in the city of Troy. So Teresa, thank you for starting this, I think is a fair way of saying it. And of course, Cindy Stewart, for your help in coordinating and coming up with a plan that is effective and working. And I've seen it in the news a little bit, and I think it's good for our city. And again, I know my neighbor across the street, whose husband passed away, it's frankly, she's still very, very upset. It's really difficult for her, but some neighbors had told her that we had done this in the city hall, in front of City Hall, and it it did mean something to her. So I know that it does have a good effect on people. So if you get a chance and you can see the flags on driving on Big Beaver, I think it's a nice tribute for our city, and check it out if you can, I guess. It's the best way of saying it. Next on certificates is C3, a proclamation to recognize International Women's Day, March 8th, 2021. I will also read this into the record. It's a proclamation to recognize International Women's Day, March 8th, 2021. Whereas the history of International Women's Day, though comparatively short, is as bold and brilliant as its founders themselves. Long before the feminist movement of the 1960s, International Women's Day's genesis goes back to February 28, 1909 in New York, with a prophetic focus on women's rights. And whereas known originally as National Women's Day, it was first proposed by Teresa Malkiel and loosely based on the urban legend commemorating a protest by women garment workers in New York City on March 8, 1857. 100 women delegates from 17 countries agreed with the suggestion as a means to continue promoting the rights of women, including suffrage, the right to vote. And whereas on March 19, 1911, International Women's Day was officially marked for the first time. More than 1 million people celebrated in Austria, Denmark, Germany, and Switzerland. Women demanded the right to vote, to fight against sex discrimination in the workplace, and to hold public office. And whereas in 1913, International Women's Day was recognized in Russia for the first time, where it catapulted to become part of what led to the Russian Revolution in 1917. In 1922, it reached China, where March 8th was declared an office half-day of work for women in 1949. And whereas the demand for women's rights continued to grow, gain support, and shine a much-needed light on the poor conditions under which too many women continue to live. In 1967, the notion of women's rights was taken up by the next generation of feminists who called for equal pay, equal economic opportunity, equal legal rights, reproductive rights, subsidized childcare, and the prevention of violence against women. And whereas the United Nations began celebrating International Women's Day in 1975, which was declared International Women's Year. In 1977, the United Nations invited members to proclaim March 8th as the UN Day for Women's Rights and World Peace, and International Women's Day continues to be celebrated worldwide each year on March 8th. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Troy City Council recognizes the historical significance and importance of International Women's Day, and recognizes and applauds the contributions of so many courageous women from many nations throughout the past 100 plus years. We celebrate the advancement of women's rights in all areas of life with the acknowledgement there is still much progress to be made and work to be done because in many parts of the world, women still live in fear and have far fewer rights than imaginable. And be it further resolved that the Troy City Council recognizes the strength of every woman and believe that together we will fulfill the century-old vision of the International Women's Day founders to stand firmly together as we do all we can to create a better, more peaceful world. This is presented this 8th day of March 2021. We also, the Global Troy Advisory Committee put together a video to celebrate International Women's Day, and it was posted on our city's YouTube account and also the city's Facebook. And I know there was some contributions from women throughout our community, including our very own Councilmember Hoderick. Has a little piece in there, so thank you, Ellen, for participating in that as well. That concludes certificates of recognition and special presentations. There are no carryover items this evening. There are no public hearings this evening, so we move on to public comment. As a reminder, so long as we're meeting virtually, public comment can be submitted in, by sending an email to publiccomment@troymi.gov or by recording a voicemail at phone number 248-524-3302. And I will turn it over to City Clerk Dixon to see if we have any public comment this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. We have one email and one voicemail tonight. The first email is from Michelle Malchik. Hello, council members. I'm writing this email regarding the Troy Aquatic Center. I saw online that it will be reopening this season. Will membership be limited to Troy residents? I'm hoping you will consider this as there may be capacity limits in place, and I feel as a taxpayer that we should get preference. Please advise how this will be addressed this year. And now we have one voicemail.
Good evening. This is Vita Gradsky from the Global Troy Advisory Committee. wishing Troy City Council and residents of the city of Troy a happy International Women's Day today, March 8th, 2021. Buona feste delle donne. Thank you for all who participated in the virtual presentation, and I'm so proud to live in a city such as Troy, Michigan, that would take the time and effort to put on this virtual program available on the city's social media and website. I also want to remind everyone that March is Women's History Month. Thank you again for supporting females, and happy International Women's Day.
And that's all the public comment for tonight.
That concludes those that have participated in virtual public comment, either by emailing publiccomment@troymi.gov or leaving a voicemail at 248-524-3302. Now's the opportunity for City Council or City Administration to provide any response to anything that came in this evening. I don't see Mark shaking his head. I will say for the email from Michelle regarding the Aquatic Center, certainly we'll take that under advisement. We can look into what the plan is. Not knowing yet what potential capacity limits will be at the Aquatic Center for public pools, we'll have to see where things work out, and also recognize we have a lot of financial considerations to think about, and the restrictions on non-residents could be a huge cost to the city at a time when the Aquatic Center is looking for funding in general. So we certainly can look into that. I'm sure City Manager Miller will keep that on his radar. Right, Mark? And also, I'll give a thank you to Lisa for calling in. It was a nice message, and it's always nice to hear the nice messages. And we'll look forward to Wednesday night when Lisa on Global Troy will be there at our joint meeting, so we can actually thank her in person as well, virtually in person. So, anyone else on council have any response? Not seeing any excitement. All right. There are no postponed items this evening, so we move on to regular business. First up are board and committee appointments. I don't have any mayoral appointments this evening, and we do have a couple city council appointments, so I will turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to appoint Ray Watts and Steve Sadler to the election committee for the term expiring January 31st, 2022.
Support.
I think it was moved by Mayor Pro Tem Brooks and supported by Councilmember Chamberlain Krianga that Troy City Council appoints to the Election Commission Ray Watts and Steve Sadler to the terms expiring January 31st, 2022. Any discussion? All right, the vote was Dixon.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Motion carries. We thank Ray and Steve both for their service on the Election Commission. And that concludes City Council appointments this evening. We next move on to I2, Board and Committee nominations. Mayoral nominations are first. I do have one this evening. I'll move to nominate David Stone to the Downtown Development Authority for the term expiring September 30, 2023.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that the mayor moves to nominate David Stone to the Downtown Development Authority for the term expiring September 30, 2023. Any discussion? I will just let everybody know that Mr. Stone will have his application submitted to City Clerk Dixon very imminently, I would assume, and it will be there for review before we make any motions to nominate or to appoint him formally. And just as so everyone knows, he's the president and CEO of Tryon, which is right there in the district at 888 West Big Beaver. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes. Motion carries. That concludes mayoral nominations this evening. Mayor Pro Tem Brooks, do you have city council nominations?
None tonight.
All right, that concludes I2. There's no request for a closed session this evening, so we move on to I4, request to temporarily suspend business licensing requirements for amusements and auto washes. And I will hand that over to City Clerk Dixon for an introduction.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, the item before you is we're requesting that City Council approve the waiver of the licensing requirements for certain types of businesses that are covered under very specific chapters of the City Code. Specifically, businesses such as car washes, amusement places, which would be like bowling alleys or skating rinks, and places that have video games or pool tables in their locations, such typically would be restaurants or club buildings like VFW halls. Those businesses are all required to be licensed under chapters in the City Code and pay fees annually. And those businesses have been greatly impacted by the COVID-19 restrictions. So we felt that it would be the right thing to do to give those businesses a break in 2021 and not require them to license, as well as waive the late fee requirement from Chapter 59 for all businesses, which requires a 50% late fee be paid for any license fees that are paid after January 15th of the year. So these would be annual renewals. That would be, if they're paid after January 15th, we have to charge them a 50% late fee. And then also for any businesses that fall under the chapters, we're talking about car washes, amusements, that any of those businesses that have paid their license fees up to this point, which is about half of the businesses that we typically see licensed, we would be authorized to refund their fees that they had paid. So the resolution that you have in front of you asks for those three things to be authorized by City Council.
Thank you, City Clerk Dixon. Are there any questions? Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move I4, request to temporarily suspend business licensing requirements for amusements and auto washes, as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Erickson Galt, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we approve I4, request to temporarily suspend business licensing requirements for amusements and auto washes. Any discussion? Councilmember Hamilton.
Just want to thank thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank city staff for this idea. I like anything we can do to support our small businesses through these tough times. I know they've been through a lot. I know a lot of the federal government's bringing some relief, and I know we also recently approved the Oakland County Restaurant Relief Program. So any businesses that, any restaurants that are looking for a little help can talk to the city, and we can help direct you through that as well. But this is another thing that we're trying to do to help our small businesses make it through this. So great job, everyone. I'm really happy to see this.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. Any other discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. And that concludes regular business this evening. Next up is the consent agenda. Did anybody have an item they'd like to pull from the consent agenda for discussion or separate consideration? Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham and supported by Councilmember Erickson Galt that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Yes.
Motion carries. All items on the consent agenda have been approved this evening. There are no memorandums and future council agenda items. We've handled public comment. There are no council referrals this evening, so we move on to reports. Does anybody have any comments on the reports this evening? Or any of the reports? Councilmember Hamilton.
I just wanted to point out O2B, which is the interim financial report for the second quarter for 6 months that ended December 31st, 2020. I have to say, honestly, compared to a year ago where I thought we'd be in the first and second quarter of the fiscal year, we're in a lot stronger shape than what I thought. What's really interesting, but when you think about it, it makes sense, is that our golf courses have just had an absolute explosion in usage. And they are cash flowing very positive compared to where they've been in the past. And maybe if that's a future trend, that's great news for the long-term health of our golf courses. So it's good to see. But I know Parks and Recreation has been hit hard, and there's a lot of work we're going to have to do to make sure that builds back up. And I know the library soon enough will open, and come July 1st, we'll open 7 days and have a lot more expanded features. But overall, it's a pretty strong report, and I just want to thank Mark and city staff for everything they've done through this incredibly difficult year to keep our city fiscally strong and heading in the right direction.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. Mark can agree. I think I told Mark, I had a meeting with Mark earlier, and I said, I bet Councilmember Hamilton says something about the interim financial report during comments. I won. All right. Do I win a prize?
I got to narrow down on the numbers. That's what I do.
The other thing is, if you can make sure it doesn't rain, I think the golf courses will do really well from here on out. So if you can do something about that, it might cause some other problems, but at least we'll have the golf courses doing really well.
They've been packed this last week. I was driving by. I mean, it's amazing what you guys do to keep it open all parts of the year. If the snow's melted, you can go golf. It was amazing.
There was a bunch of people out at Silver Glen today when I drove by. It's good to see. So very good. Any other comments on the reports this evening? Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig.
Thank you, Mayor. I just actually had two questions related to O01A and O01B, the Parks and Rec final minutes from that board. And there were just a lot of good nuggets. There's just a lot of things happening with that committee. And one thing that just kind of struck me was, I believe I read that the senior gardens will indeed be opening this year. So just wanted to check to confirm that that's planned and that's being communicated.
City Manager Miller, is that something you can speak to?
I don't know the answer specifically. We'll check into it and we will get back with council.
I would, I'll put in my 2 cents that I hope that they do open this year.
No, we got lots of questions last year. And a lot of, yes. I hope we can. Other just quick question was, I noticed that there's a county program that's going to be launching to plant something like 20,000 oak trees in partnership with the Stage Nature Center. So also just wondered at some point if we could get some more information about that. Sounds interesting.
All right, City Manager Miller, you got that? Is that something we can get more information on? Or unless there's somebody here that has any information on it now. I don't know if there is.
Yes, so unless Mr. Bruner can add to it, and I'll be honest, I missed what facility was mentioned.
It is the Stage Nature Center. It's an Oakland County initiative to plant 20,000 oak trees in partnership. They're going to partner with the Stage Nature Center.
Interesting. Actually, while we're talking about tree partnerships and plantings, I thought from a year ago, maybe this is something that might be the same thing, but I think there was another initiative to plant like 25,000 trees or something, and where there was a grant where I don't know if Kurt Bovensee there might be something in the past about that. If you could look into that as well, just while we're talking about trees and tree plantings, I think that's if there's a status on that as well, that'd be great. Any other comments about the reports this evening? I just want to thank for the quick report on the liquor violation hearings. I did ask about those at the last meeting. I think it was the last meeting. Thanks for that report. Appreciate it. And good to know that the violations aren't so plentiful that we're stuck with a position where we need to have lengthy meetings. So it's been quite a while since we've done this. Anyway, thank you. Okay, that concludes reports this evening. Council comments. Does anybody have any council comments? Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I would like to formally thank you, Mayor Baker, also Dr. Phyllis Meadows, Cornelius Godfrey, Mavita Burris, Carolina Noguez, and Sarah Ames for making the Black History Month panel discussion happen. And I hope that it was a substantive and important discussion that we were able to have regarding things that are happening in the city to promote equity and justice for all of our residents. The other, it's more of a question. And I know that the American Rescue Plan that was recently approved by, passed by the Senate and the House does have stipulations for local governments and direct funding for local governments. And it's likely to be signed this week. My first question is, are we an entitlement community? Is Troy an entitlement community? And also, do we know how much money we may receive from this plan? And then the third is, how do we expect possibly this financial incentive to affect our budget?
Good questions. City Manager Miller?
Mayor, I'm not sure what they mean by entitlement community. It may mean, are you a CDBG entitlement community, which we qualify to be one, but we reject our entitlement and we are part of the Oakland County CDBG program. Well, but I'll double check and confirm that. The second question was, there was some money projected to go to locals. We will monitor the legislation and try to figure out what the impact will be on the city of Troy. And right now, we don't know exactly, and we're going to have to wait for the dust to settle a little bit to actually figure out what the impact really will be on the city.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Yes, because I know that it sounds like the entitlement communities will receive money directly from the federal government versus the non-entitlement will receive it more from the state. So I was just wondering. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Brooks. I think we also shouldn't count our chickens until all the eggs have hatched. So that's my, as it relates to that. I think that's the scary thing for me, because I've seen estimates of numbers that vary so widely from reputable sources. And so I'm very confident that City Manager Miller and CFO Rob Malzik will when those numbers come through, will certainly provide us with all the information we need from a policy standpoint, but also will certainly know exactly, I'll have good information on where the budget should handle it, how it best. But on the flip side, looks to be good news for the city of Troy and for many other cities. So we certainly can be looking forward to something along those lines. Any other council comments this evening? Let's go with Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two separate comments. The first is, I just want to circle back with resident Lisa Bika-Grodzki, thanking her again for her comment. And I also just want to thank all of the women trailblazers who've come before us on City Council, and just want to thank also my fellow female council members. It is such an honor to serve with you. You continue to be an inspiration to me, mentors, friends, and it's just a delight and honor. And also just thinking of COVID as we circle back and think of this kind of year that has passed since we've gone into lockdown. Also want to recognize the way in which the pandemic has had a disproportionate impact on working women. And I know there's been some data that was released by McKinsey talking about how, women make up 39% of the global employment, but account for 54% of overall job losses during the pandemic. And I know women's lives have been squeezed and stretched during the pandemic. So just want to call that out and just thank all those women out there who I know are doing double duty, as well as those who have lost loved ones. And so proud of our city of finding a way to honor those who have been lost, and had a chance to go by City Hall on Sunday and see that beautiful memorial. So thank you so much. Mayor Pro Tem Books, Mayor Baker, Cindy Stewart, our Community Affairs Director. I think it's a very beautiful tribute. Very honored by that. The second set of comments was something that's been brewing in my mind, and wanted to just raise and see if we could start a conversation or seek council consensus to kind of dive into it a little bit more. And that is around kind of how we lay out and communicate our priorities for the year, our priorities around our budgeting. And I think back to our rich conversation that we had in November, two public meetings where we talked about budget priorities. And out of all that conversation, I couldn't help but to think that just it would help in our communication with our residents and that transparency to have some sort of list of those different priorities that we're talking about. So kind of based on those conversations, based on after we get resident surveys back and we have a chance to discuss those. And as we have our budget meetings and seek to approve the budget. And I'm not sure if that is something, a list that is developed for the next fiscal year, but something that allows our residents to know, A, what we're working on, and B, what our budget reflects that we are focusing on this year. And I know in the past, there has been a focus on something called strategies. I know a number of you, I sent emails years past about how I felt strongly those are not strategies. Strategies are something quite different. They're very strategic, but strategies have inputs and outputs and theories of change. But those are more priorities or kind of outcomes. And just finding something that would be that we could own. And I know that City Manager Miller has had a strong sense of helping us rethink, kind of when we go about doing that and doing it in a way that really connects with the budget process. And I'm bringing this up tonight because I think of the mayor's, your desire, and it's a wonderful one to do a State of the City address. And I'm fully on board and very supportive and look forward to being there virtually or in person, however we can do it. And thinking in that conversation that priorities will be shared, but just to make sure that we're aligned on those priorities. And, if I'm going to speak with my neighborhood about the things we're working on in council, or that our mayor is, or another council member, that instead of us sharing different things, that we know that we're sharing just one set of things that we're working on. And again, as something that is just easier for residents to know, because we recognize people are not going to dive into the budget to always be able to ascertain what those priorities are. So something I just want to throw out there for discussion, just to help us better communicate and be transparent with how we're spending city resources and supporting our residents.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig. I'm thinking about what you said, and I will probably mistakenly call them strategies because I'm used to calling them strategies. So forgive me if I do. But I'm not sure how best to facilitate something like that. Or certainly we have the opportunity if anyone wants to speak to it now, or if City Manager Miller would like to speak to that. We just as a reminder to those watching, or even to council here, we had continued that policy of put together a list even up till last year, after we had our joint meeting with department heads and Council Community Center. I think it was in late January. We put together kind of a list of our priorities or what we'd hoped, but as I recall, the majority of us weren't really happy with that finalized list, and so we never actually approved the publishing of that list or using that list, and then COVID happened and everything kind of changed. I'm certainly happy to look at how we might want to do something. I think it is good for all of us to be on the same page and what priorities we're communicating that we say we're working on. It's one thing for me to go out and say, this is what we're doing, but maybe it's not, it'd be nice to have the consensus from everyone on council that this is truly what our priorities are. And obviously our budget that we approve will demonstrate what our priorities are. I don't know, City Manager Miller, if you wanted to say anything specifically, not to put you on the spot, or what you think might work. I mean, we're already heading into the proposed budget and So I don't know if you have any thoughts to start.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. This really isn't that much off the cuff because I did receive an email or a few emails from Councilperson Chamberlain Krenga, and I have been giving this some thought. And actually, we talked earlier today, and I think the place that we need to start being city management is we need to look back at those meetings in November and see what takeaways we have and for lack of a better term, priorities identified by city council, kind of put that together and then use it in our 2 study sessions coming up in April. And then once we get through those 2 study sessions, we can develop some sort of, I'm going to use a word which I feel sorry, sort of a marketing tool for the budget, for the lack of a better term. I think that would be a good thing in the long run. If you look at the front end of the budget, there is a summary that is included of all the major projects. So I think if we pull that information out and make it easier to put on social media and easier to put in your hand to hand out to people, I think that's a good idea because our job is to inform, and let's be frank, the budget's a dry subject. Most people could use a cheat sheet or a simple way to look at what the priorities are of city council. So I think it's a good idea, and we're going to start by looking back at those meetings in November and see what that tells us, and then bring that forward to the study meetings in April for the budget.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else have any comments on that issue? Councilmember Hamilton?
Right. And I think Mark just touched on it. But just thoughts about what Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga said, that kind of priorities or key takeaways from the budget would be really useful, like key differences, key focuses compared to budget of the past, and like key changes. You kind of list that when you do read the budget. And of course, I read the budget document like 4 times because I'm a huge nerd.
A day. 4 times a day. Oh, sorry.
But I mean, when you're trying to put a baby to sleep or something, it's a good thing, through. But no, I think that's a great idea to just kind of break it down to 5 to 10 key focuses that the budget has. I think that's a good idea. The other comment I had was just to update Troy residents that today is the first day that COVID vaccine eligibility has changed in quite a few weeks. It was announced by Michigan Department of Health and Human Services end of last week. So as of today, if you're 50 years or over and you have pre-existing medical conditions that they have on their site, you are eligible to get a vaccine. You're also eligible if you're a caregiver of kids with pre-existing medical conditions of any, and if you're 16 and up and you're a caregiver for a kid, you're now eligible as of today. And in 2 weeks, all Michigan residents 50 and up will be eligible for vaccines as well. So if you haven't yet, you can sign up at Oakland County's website, oakgov.com. I know that you can look at through Meyer, Rite Aid are providing them. You can do your local healthcare hospital system provider, Henry Ford, Beaumont. They all have ways you can sign up. It's kind of convoluted. I've kind of looked through for my wife's parents and a few other people, and it's complicated, but there's a lot of support there. Oakland County provides a lot of good support. They have a nurse on call you can call as well. I don't have the number with me, but a lot more people are eligible for vaccines starting today in the next 2 weeks. So please get your vaccine as soon as possible so we can get through this pandemic and move on with our lives and enjoy life again like we used to.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. Additional council comments? Councilmember Erickson Gall.
Thank you, Mayor. I had the pleasure and honor a couple, not this past weekend, the weekend before, attending Michigan Municipal League's Elected Officials Academy. I had heard good things about it from Councilmember Hamilton when he attended a couple years ago. I was glad that, even though I was hoping to attend last year, and because of COVID, it didn't go forward, but it was a wonderful experience. I learned a few things, but I was pleasantly surprised to see how much of what they went over at the Academy was kind of review for me. And I just look at that as just a wonderful compliment to our city staff on how well they keep us informed of important issues, especially regarding finances, the effect of things such as Open Meetings Act and FOIA on what we do. MML, Michigan Municipal League, is a great resource, and I really thank them for putting on that event and everything I learned. And I strongly encourage, if my other fellow members of council haven't taken it yet, to please consider a future, taking that in the future. It was just a great resource we have with MML.
Thank you, Councilmember Erickson Galt. And nice compliment to give the city staff. That's nice of you to do. So it's true. I think sometimes we forget how we have it pretty well in the city of Troy as elected officials, because we do get we do things right. We follow the rules, and we get a lot of good information from our city staff. So thank you. It's a good one. Additional council comments this evening? All right. Well, I had one that was advanced. I am planning on doing a State of the City address in May 19th. And I'm hoping that it can be an in-person outdoor event, which is a lot of ifs as far as pandemics and rain and fun stuff like that. But obviously we'll be fully prepared to go virtual if necessary. But I do think it's an important tradition to bring back to the city of Troy. It's been a while since we've had one, and I'm very fortunate to be working with Tara Thompson-Cusack of the Troy Chamber of Commerce and Cindy Stewart, Community Affairs Director here. We're kind of working together to make that happen in a good blend of chamber and city. I'm not sure what it's a good blend of, but it's a good blend of the chamber and the city. And I appreciate the positive feedback I've heard so far on it. There'll be more information coming, and obviously we'll look to each of you for your input at various times for various things, and hopefully participation in some meaningful way. So looking forward to that. I don't have any other council comments this evening. I don't think anybody else does. We don't have a closed session this evening. So I will say that we're adjourned. Appreciate a good quick meeting tonight. So good night, everybody. Thank you.